the ground shake.
Hello, thank you Blitz and welcome to my first review on this channel. Right now I'm with the tier 2 premium light tank called the Tetrarch, if I say it correctly, and I'm with my good mate from the Emperor's clan called Damonak. So I'm gonna try to represent this tank as best as I can, and yeah. So you can win this tank via the Blitz fair, and I'm gonna try to say what's good and bad about this tank. Well, the tank is pretty mobile. It has really great top speed. It is really tiny, and it's as small as that MS1, as you can see, that tier 1 tank, which is really important because it's a tier 1 tank and you're a tier 2 tank, so you're really small. It has a mediocre gun, which is okay-ish. I mean, you can get those shots, but sometimes will miss. It has actually good gun depression, which is important. Because if you have good gun depression, you can get some shots that you wouldn't normally get with guns that don't have good gun depression. So I could get that gun down low enough to hit that T26. So why does it have health? Well, it has a really good trollish armor. I mean, it has really good typical Russian angles. And that's important because you see, as I angle like that at an angle of 45 degrees, I can actually bounce those shots. And that's important because as it is tiny, you can hide it behind anything. And as it has good angles, you can bounce a lot of shots. So what does this mean? Well, at tier 2 you have a lot of autoloaders, which are tanks that fire a lot in one go. And that means that they can't like ditch out the damage if you hide. And when you hide, as you are so small, that means you can actually avoid a lot of damage and you can ditch out your damage back. So that means you can be really successful with that tank, and I think it was a lot of fun driving it. So what does it have bad? Well, it doesn't have a lot of armor. Except those angles, it doesn't have a lot of armor. It has crappy traverse numbers, which is a shame, but yeah, it has. When you turn, you lose a lot of speed. And it has, well, that gun is not, well, it's not a sniper. You can't snipe with the thing. It's really hard to snipe, and yeah. So now I'm gonna go with the actual numbers of the tank, and so stay tuned for more. So the Tetrarch. It moves around the place quite comfortably with a 64 km speed limit with a 180 horsepower engine on a 7.45 ton tank. It has mediocre traverse numbers for a light tank with a 48 degrees traverse on its tracks and 43 on its turret. Its gun is okay with a 5 seconds aim time. As it is not an autoloader, it has 64mm of penetration, which is good for a premium tank, and a quite okay damage gun with 45 on its AP rounds that can fire 15 rounds a minute, giving it a total of 960 DPM for a tier 2 tank. That's quite impressive for a tier 2 tank with a 0.38 dispersion. In terms of armor, it does not have much, with 16 at the front, 14 at the sides and 10 at the rear. Same goes for the turret. However, it is angled considerably, which means if you angle it between 30 to 45 degrees, then against autoloaders you will bounce a lot of shots, which means that with your size and your mobility, the ability to bounce shots as well means that it can perform very well in most situations. So here's a game on Mines that I chose for this review to explain that experience was key for me to win that game, and that using the best part of your tank usually means that you will win more. So as our team is full of light tanks, I chose to actually rush the hill and not stop to actually rush the hill, and I always do that if we have a lot of light tanks. So we're gonna try to rush the hill because it's really important, and that normally on mine you always rush that hill because It's a key point. In most maps there are key points, and on mine that's one of them. So here I take a few shots, but as I am so tiny, as I told you before, it's just so hard to actually land shots on actual me. And you see, I'm so little that most of his shots don't actually touch me. And I prefer shots not touching me than actually me trying to block them. And that tank excels at that, and that's important because that's how I actually avoid damage. So here, I think that experience kind of made me do that, because I chose to go for that T-26 because I knew he was low on health, and I knew that if I can take a tank down, then the team will be better for it. So here, I know that I can run and not stay there because I know that I'm gonna get wrecked. And so that's it. I was just gonna run and use the mobility of the tank to actually run the battlefield and go to their flank. And you see, from like 5 seconds, I just ended up at the back of them. And here I do a mistake that cost me my actual tank, because I forgot that that M2 Light actually followed me. But that's important that I did that, because now the Hago, my teammate, can actually get that hill, and so I separated their whole team. And now they're all on that bottom of the hill, not contesting the top of the hill. And so basically we're gonna win this because the Hago, the tank that my teammate is driving, has now the hill, and now we're gonna win that pretty easily, even if it's in a 4v4 situation. And that's how we win that game, because we just dispersed, using our mobility, their team. And we used what the tank was best at, which was being fast and being so tiny. And so we used that to actually survive and not taking a lot of damage in. And that's how we won that game, because we used what the tank was best at doing, and I used my experience to the game to do what I just did, which was to actually roll on through and not taking much damage and doing as much damage as I could, and finally dispersing our team. And look at that gun depression. I mean, look at that gun depression about the Hago. I mean, that thing is awesome. So the final game is gonna be on Copperfield, and it will show the best usage of the tank. So we already saw that the tank is tiny and that it has a really good speed. But what does it have else? Well, it has good armor. It has that typical Russian trollish angled armor, which is really important because at tier 2, people don't know how to angle their armor. So if you know how to angle your armor, then you can be really successful in this tank. And so here I'm gonna go on a position that I love, and that the Tetrarch can use quite effectively. And that's really important, because positions in this game, if you can get into a good position while your tank excels, then normally you can win a lot of games. So here, as I am tiny, and as my armor is so strong, because it's angled and it's typical Russian, I can just not take shots except from that tank destroyer or whatever was there. I cannot take shots from them over the left flank. And that means that I can actually dodge shots. Like, I can actually try not to... you see that tier 1 tank? You see, I just dodged it. I'm so small that I can block and dodge. And that's really, 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 really important and good, because if I can do that, then I can win a lot of games, because I don't take a lot of damage in, and I can output a lot of damage back. And you see, I go backwards and forwards. When I'm finished reloading, I go out. When I'm reloading, I go back to cover. And always, what's important with this tank is to go back to cover when you're not firing. And if you can use the tank like that, then you will always be a winner. So that tank, I think, initiates people and other new tankers or new players to the Russian I mean tech tree basically, because that tank is so powerful. I mean it's so typically Russian, and it's such a good brawler that you can be initiated to the style of gameplay of, for example, the Object 140 or the T62A. Those two tanks not are not looking the same like this one, but they have a lot of common characteristics, namely the actual strong angled armor and the actual the actual speed and how small they are. So that's why I like the tank. It initiates people to fighting into higher tiers. So this is it for this video, for this review. So I hope you enjoyed. Leave a like down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below if you have any feedback. Subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you in the next episode.